Welcome back to the channel Valuable Coins HD, where we dive deep into the stories behind the coins you might have forgotten about, and today, we're exploring a true classic of American numismatics, the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny. This tiny copper coin has been jingle-jangling in pockets for over 75 years, but beneath its humble surface lies a history, and sometimes, a value, that can surprise even the most seasoned collectors. The Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most beloved and recognizable coins in the United States. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first regular-issue American coin to feature a real person's portrait. The wheat ears on the reverse side symbolize prosperity and growth in a country that was rapidly evolving. Now, the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny might seem like just another penny from the mid-20th century, but it was minted during a tumultuous time in history, right in the thick of World War II. That year marked the final full year of the global conflict, and the United States was heavily engaged in the war effort both overseas and at home. Copper was in high demand for military equipment, which affected the composition and minting of coins. Even though the 1945 pennies were still primarily made from copper, they carry the weight of history within them. As soldiers returned home and the nation began rebuilding, these pennies circulated widely. Millions were minted, making them a common coin to find in circulation even today. But just because they're common doesn't mean they don't have hidden value. Collectors today hunt for specific variations and, more importantly, condition. The truth is, most pennies from 1945 show signs of wear. They've traveled through decades of use, and many have scratches, discoloration, or other imperfections. But when a 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny is found in exceptionally good condition, especially uncirculated, it becomes a prized collectible. There are also some notable varieties and errors from the 1945 series that can add even more intrigue and value. For example, some pennies from the Denver and Philadelphia mints can show double dies or slight variations in the lettering and dates. These subtle differences can make a coin rarer and more desirable to collectors. One key point to note is that wheat pennies from this era were struck at 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Each had a mint mark, or lack of one in the case of Philadelphia, which helps collectors identify their origin and rarity. The San Francisco coins, marked with an S, were often proof coins, created specifically for collectors, and they can command higher values when found in pristine condition. Now, what about the value? Most 1945 wheat pennies in average circulated condition are worth just a few cents or dollars at best. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. If you happen to own a 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny that is in mint, flawless condition, with no wear and exceptional eye appeal, it could be worth thousands. And if it's one of the rare error coins or a proof version with certain characteristics, the value skyrockets. In fact, there have been exceptional 1945 pennies that have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at auction. And in the rarest, most perfect cases, a single penny has reached an astounding price: $124,000. Yes, that's right, a coin with a face value of 1 cent once sold for $124,000. A penny turned into an extraordinary treasure. So, if you're a collector, or even just someone who likes to keep an eye on coins that pass through your hands, take a moment to examine any 1945 Lincoln Wheat pennies you might come across. Look for sharp details, clear dates, mint marks, and any unusual characteristics. Even a tiny imperfection or an error can mean big value in the right collector's market. Today, we're shining the spotlight on a classic piece of American history, the 1953 United States 1-cent Lincoln Wheat Penny. This little copper coin may look like just a simple penny, but stick with me, because its story and potential worth might surprise you in ways you never expected. The Lincoln Wheat Penny is one of the most iconic coins ever minted in the United States. Introduced in 1909 to honor President Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first circulating American coin to feature a real person's portrait. The reverse design features 2 stalks of wheat, symbolizing prosperity and the agricultural backbone of the nation. For nearly 4 decades, this design graced every penny, making it a beloved favorite among collectors and everyday Americans alike. Now, the 1953 penny was minted during a period of post-World War II prosperity in the United States. The country was experiencing economic growth, suburban expansion, and a renewed sense of optimism. The penny itself was composed of 95% copper and 5% zinc, a composition used until the mid-1980s. In 1953, pennies were produced at two mints, Philadelphia, which left no mint mark, and Denver, marked with a small d just below the date. At first glance, the 1953 Lincoln wheat penny might appear to be an ordinary coin you'd find in any jar of spare change. But here's the thing, many coins from this era have quietly appreciated in value, especially those in pristine condition or with rare characteristics. Millions of these pennies were minted, and most saw heavy circulation, resulting in the wear and tear we commonly see on coins that have changed hands for decades. But what really catches the eye of collectors is when a 1953 penny is found in uncirculated or mint condition. These coins exhibit sharp details, smooth surfaces, and the original luster that you just don't see in your everyday penny. In addition to condition, some 1953 pennies have unique variations or errors that make them even more desirable. For example, there have been discoveries of double dies, where the coin's design elements appear double due to a misalignment during the minting process. Such errors are like nature's little accidents, turning a common coin into a rare and valuable piece. Collectors also keep a close eye on the mint mark. The D mint mark from Denver is often more sought after than the Philadelphia issues because fewer coins were produced there. But either way, the key is condition combined with rarity. Professional grading organizations like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, assign grades to coins based on their condition, with the highest grade being a perfect 70. A 1953 Lincoln wheat penny graded MS 65 or above, meaning mint state with almost no imperfections, can command significantly higher prices than circulated examples. Now, let's talk about value. While most 1953 pennies are worth just a few cents or a couple of dollars if they're in circulated condition, the rare uncirculated and error coins can fetch much more. Over the years, some of these exceptional pennies have sold at auction for thousands of dollars, and here's the jaw-dropping part: one rare, flawless 1953 Lincoln wheat penny recently made headlines when it sold for a staggering price at auction. Can you guess how much? This 1-cent coin, a seemingly modest piece of metal, sold for a mind-blowing $102,000. Yes, you heard that right. A penny worth over $100,000. It's a reminder that sometimes the most humble objects can hold incredible value, especially when history, rarity, and condition align perfectly. So, if you ever come across a 1953 Lincoln wheat penny, take a moment to examine it closely. Look for clear details, a strong mint mark, and minimal wear. If it looks pristine, consider having it graded by a professional, because you might just have a coin that's worth far more than you think. Today, we're diving deep into a true piece of American history, the 1917 United States 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny. This small copper coin carries not only the legacy of one of America's greatest presidents but also a tale of rarity, intrigue, and astonishing value that might just blow your mind. The Lincoln wheat penny was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person's likeness, a groundbreaking design choice at the time. The obverse of the coin displays a dignified portrait of Lincoln himself, created by famed sculptor Victor David Brenner. On the reverse, two stalks of wheat frame the words, 1 cent, symbolizing the nation's agricultural roots and promise of prosperity. Now, the 1917 Lincoln wheat penny was minted during a time when the world was in turmoil. World War I was raging across Europe, and America had just entered the conflict earlier that year. It was a period defined by courage, sacrifice, and the fight for freedom, a spirit that echoes in the copper of every penny minted that year. Unlike the billions of pennies produced in modern times, the 1917 pennies were struck in smaller quantities. Most were minted at Philadelphia, which bore no mint mark, but some came from the San Francisco Mint, marked with an S. The San Francisco issues tend to be more valuable due to their lower mintage numbers. What makes the 1917 penny so fascinating isn't just its historical context but the variations and rarities that collectors obsess over. One notable variety is the 1917 S over D mint mark error, where the S mint mark was mistakenly stamped over a D. Coins like these are rare and highly sought after because they represent a unique mistake in the minting process, a fleeting moment that collectors treasure. Condition plays an enormous role in determining the value of any coin, and the 1917 Lincoln wheat penny is no exception. Most pennies from that era have been worn down after decades of circulation. But when one is found in pristine, uncirculated condition, it's like discovering a time capsule, a near-perfect glimpse into the past. Collectors around the world prize such coins, and professional grading services assign them grades that reflect their state of preservation. A 1917 Lincoln wheat penny graded as mint state 65 or higher can command significant attention in the marketplace, and now, the part you've been waiting for, the incredible value that a rare 1917 Lincoln wheat penny can fetch. While common circulated pennies might only be worth a few dollars, an exceptional specimen, especially with rare mint marks or errors, can skyrocket in price. In a breathtaking example of numismatic history, one 1917 Lincoln wheat penny recently sold for a staggering amount at auction. That amount? $2 million. Yes, you heard that right, $2 million for a single penny. This astonishing price reflects not just the coin's rarity but its historical significance and the passionate demand from collectors worldwide. Imagine owning a coin that, for less than the cost of a cup of coffee, could be worth more than most luxury cars. So, if you ever stumble upon a 1917 Lincoln wheat penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look, examine the details, check for mint marks or unusual features, and if it looks exceptionally well preserved, consider having it professionally graded. Today, we're digging into one of the last issues of an American classic, the 1957 United States 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny. This coin may be over 6 decades old, but don't let its age fool you. It could be worth a whole lot more than just a single cent. Grab a seat, because we're about to travel back in time and reveal how this humble penny, often overlooked, carries deep historical roots, hidden rarities, and in some cases, a value that'll leave you speechless. Let's rewind to 1957. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president, Elvis Presley was topping the charts, and America was buzzing with optimism. The post-war economy was booming, the suburbs were expanding, and coinage was in full production to keep up with a growing, thriving population. And right in the heart of this era, the U.S. Mint released the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that would become one of the final issues in the beloved Wheat Reverse series. For those of you unfamiliar, the Lincoln wheat penny, also known simply as the wheat cent, was minted from 1909 to 1958. It features the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, designed by Victor David Brenner, and 2 stylized wheat ears on the reverse, flanking the words, 1 cent. The design is simple, classic, and packed with symbolism. It reflects the strength of American agriculture and the enduring legacy of one of the nation's greatest presidents. Now, 1957 pennies were struck at 2 mint facilities, Philadelphia, which issued coins with no mint mark, and Denver, which used a small d below the date. Between the 2 locations, hundreds of millions of pennies were minted. So yes, on the surface, it might seem like the 1957 wheat penny is just another common coin. But here's where things get interesting. While the vast majority of these coins were used in everyday transactions, paying for candy bars, bus fares, and newspapers, some were carefully preserved. Collectors, even back in the 1950s, recognized that the wheat design was nearing the end of its production. So, they stashed away rolls and rolls of shiny, uncirculated pennies, knowing their historical significance would only grow with time, and grow it did. Today, the value of a 1957 penny depends heavily on 2 key factors, condition and rarity. Let's talk about condition first. Most 1957 pennies you'll find in circulation today have taken a beating. They're scratched, discolored, or worn down after decades of use. But every now and then, a pristine example surfaces, untouched, sharp in detail, and glowing with original mint luster. These are the coins that serious collectors seek. Graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, uncirculated 1957 wheat pennies can be worth much more than face value, even without any rare errors. But what really makes collectors go wild are minting errors and variations. Some 1957 pennies have what's called a double die error, where certain parts of the design, usually the date or lettering, appear slightly doubled. These errors happened when the coin die misaligned or struck the blank planchet more than once. They're not obvious to the untrained eye, but collectors are always on the hunt for them because they're rare, and therefore valuable. Other anomalies include off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, called RPMs, and die cracks. Every one of these unique imperfections can raise a penny's value dramatically. They're like rare typos in a vintage book, quirky, unintended, and worth a premium. So let's get to the million-dollar question: what is the 1957 Lincoln wheat penny really worth? In average condition, these pennies are worth only a few cents. If you've got one in brilliant uncirculated condition, maybe you're looking at a few dollars. But when rarity and condition come together, when a flawless example, combined with a rare error or unusual strike, shows up at auction, that's when jaws start to drop. And recently, one such example stunned the numismatic world. A 1957 Lincoln wheat penny, in absolutely pristine, high-grade condition, with a highly sought-after error, was sold for an incredible $74,900. That's right, just 1 cent, one little copper coin, sold for $74,900. Imagine that. A coin you might find in a dusty jar or inside an old coin folder tucked away in the attic could actually be a hidden treasure. And the best part? These coins are still out there. In rolls, in collections, and yes, maybe even in your own home. So, the next time you come across a wheat penny, especially one from 1957, don't ignore it. Grab a magnifying glass, check the date, look for a mint mark, and inspect the details. If it looks flawless or has any kind of error, you might just be holding onto something that could change your life. Today's video is going to surprise you. We're turning the spotlight on a true classic, the 1950 United States 1-cent Lincoln wheat penny. It might just be one of the most underrated coins sitting quietly in plain sight, and what if I told you it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars? That's right, this small copper coin, often dismissed as just another penny, is far more than it appears. Let's explore its history, significance, rare variations, and of course, the kind of jaw-dropping value that makes coin collectors lose sleep. First, let's set the stage. The year is 1950. The Second World War is over, the United States is booming economically, and the baby boom generation is growing fast. Cars are getting sleeker, televisions are becoming common in homes, and the American dream is alive and well. Amidst this era of optimism and expansion, the U.S. Mint continued producing the Lincoln wheat penny, a coin that had already been circulating for over 4 decades. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln wheat penny was first issued in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person's face, and Lincoln's strong, thoughtful profile became an instant classic. The reverse of the coin features 2 wheat ears flanking the words, 1 cent, symbolizing strength and agricultural prosperity. This design ran until 1958, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. Now, in 1950, Lincoln wheat pennies were struck at 2 U.S. mints, Philadelphia and Denver. Coins minted in Philadelphia do not carry a mint mark, while those from Denver are marked with a small d just below the date. Between the 2 locations, hundreds of millions of pennies were produced, making the 1950 penny fairly common, at least at first glance. But here's the thing, while millions were minted, not all of them were created equal. Over time, as coins pass through hands and pockets, they suffer the wear and tear of everyday life. Most 1950 pennies today are scratched, dull, and worn down, worth little more than their face value. But if you happen to come across one that looks unusually sharp and shiny, maybe even uncirculated, you might just be holding something extraordinary. The condition of a coin is one of the biggest factors in determining its value. Coin collectors use a grading scale from 1 to 70 to rate the quality of a coin, with 70 being a perfect, mint-state coin. A 1950 penny graded as MS 65 or higher is rare and valuable on its own, but throw in a few more surprises, and things get really exciting. Some 1950 wheat pennies feature errors or variations that dramatically increase their value. For example, there are coins with double die errors, where parts of the design, such as the date or the words, Liberty or In God We Trust, appear slightly doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. There are also off-center strikes, die cracks, and repunched mint marks that add both uniqueness and demand. These small imperfections, which occurred during production, weren't caught by the mint and made it into circulation. That makes them incredibly rare, and rare coins are exactly what collectors are willing to pay a premium for. And here's the kicker: most of these errors aren't visible unless you're looking closely. So, what might look like an ordinary penny in your drawer could actually be a hidden gem waiting to be discovered. Let's talk about market value for a moment. A typical 1950 penny in average circulated condition might only be worth a few cents or maybe $1 to a collector. But when you take one of these coins in flawless, uncirculated condition, and add in a rare error or minting anomaly, you've suddenly got something truly special. In fact, one such penny made headlines after appearing at auction. A nearly perfect 1950 Lincoln wheat penny, featuring a mint error and preserved in stunning condition, was bought by a passionate collector for an eye-popping amount. That single 1-cent coin sold for an incredible $95,300. Yes, you heard that right. One tiny penny, just an inch across and made mostly of copper, fetched more than most luxury cars. This is exactly why coin collecting remains such a popular hobby and, for some, a life-changing pursuit. Because you just never know when an ordinary coin could turn out to be something extraordinary. It could be hiding in a forgotten coin jar or buried in a childhood collection in the attic. So here's what you should do if you think you have a 1950 Lincoln wheat penny. First, check the condition. Is the design sharp? Does it still have its original red-orange shine? Next, look for a mint mark under the date. Does it have a D for Denver? Finally, get a magnifying glass and inspect the fine details. Any doubling? Off-center printing? Unusual marks or striking differences? If so, it may be worth having it graded by a professional coin grading service. And remember, these kinds of coins don't come around every day, but they're out there. And with a bit of knowledge and a careful eye, you could stumble onto a piece of history that also happens to be worth a small fortune. Thanks so much for joining me on this incredible deep dive into the world of the 1950 Lincoln wheat penny. If you enjoyed learning about this coin and the amazing possibilities it holds, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you never miss a chance to discover the next rare and valuable coin. Drop a comment below if you've ever come across a 1950 wheat penny, or any coin you think could be rare. Who knows? Your story might just inspire someone else to go searching.